The human ship Meridian moved slowly through space toward the massive alien station. Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge, watching the structure grow larger on the main screen. The Galactic Council station was enormous, bigger than any human city. Hundreds of alien ships surrounded it like metal insects around a bright light. "How long until we dock?" Jake asked his navigation officer. 20 minutes, sir," came the reply. Jake nodded and walked to the communication panel. "Admiral Hayes, we're almost there." Admiral Lisa Hayes appeared on the screen from her quarters. She looked tired. The past months of failed negotiations had worn on everyone. "Thank you, Captain." "Are our guests ready?" Chief Diplomat Ryan Clark is in Conference Room 2, reviewing his notes. "Colonel Matt Sullivan is checking our security protocols one more time." Lisa Hayes had been Earth's top military leader for 8 years. She had fought in 3 different wars and never lost a battle. But today she felt like she was walking into the biggest fight of her life, and she couldn't use weapons to win it. "This is our last chance," she said quietly. "If the Council won't listen to reason today—" She didn't finish the sentence. Both she and Jake knew what would happen if these talks failed. War was coming whether humanity wanted it or not. The Meridian docked with the station 30 minutes later. Jake watched through the windows as alien workers moved around the docking bay. The Zalari looked like tall, thin humans with blue skin and no hair. The hegemony species were shorter and wider, with thick gray skin that looked like stone. There were dozens of other alien types he didn't recognize. All of them stopped what they were doing to stare at the human ship. Admiral Hayes, Ryan Clark, and Colonel Sullivan walked through the station corridors toward the council chambers. Alien guards followed them everywhere. The corridors were huge, built for species much larger than humans. Lisa felt small and out of place. "Remember," Ryan whispered as they walked, "we're here to find a peaceful solution. No matter what they say, stay calm." Matt Sullivan grunted. Peaceful solutions only work when both sides want peace. They entered the council chambers and Lisa's heart sank. The room was massive, with seats arranged in a circle around a small platform in the center. Hundreds of alien representatives sat in those seats, all looking down at the humans. At the front sat High Chancellor Vextai of the Zalari Empire and Trade Minister Kolran of the Hegemony. "Humans," Chancellor Vextai said in a cold voice. His English was perfect, but he spoke like he was tasting something bad. "You have finally come to accept our generous offer." Lisa stepped forward. "We've come to negotiate a fair agreement that works for all parties." Laughter filled the chamber. Not pleasant laughter, but the kind that made Lisa's skin crawl. Chancellor Vextai raised one long blue hand and the room became silent. "There is no negotiation," he said. "There is only our offer, which you will accept." Trade Minister Kolran stood up. His gray skin looked even more like stone under the bright lights. "Humanity will withdraw from 40% of your current colonies. You will submit to our cultural correction protocols. You will accept permanent junior membership in this council." Ryan Clark stepped forward. "Cultural correction protocols? What does that mean?" "It means," Chancellor Vextai said slowly, "that humanity has proven too aggressive and primitive for full membership among civilized species. Your military expansion, your territorial claims, your refusal to follow proper diplomatic channels, all of this shows that humans need guidance." "Guidance?" Lisa asked. "You mean control." "We mean civilization," Trade Minister Kolran replied. "Left alone, humans spread across the galaxy like a disease. You take what you want without asking permission. You defend territory that was never yours to claim. This cannot continue." Colonel Sullivan stepped forward, his hand moving toward his weapon. Lisa grabbed his arm and shook her head. "Starting a fight here would only prove their point." "What if we refuse?" Lisa asked. Chancellor Vextai smiled, showing sharp blue teeth. "Then we will make the decision for you. Our fleets are already positioned around your major trade routes. Your merchant ships are being inspected as we speak. Your colonies will learn to follow council law, whether you agree or not." The chamber filled with alien voices, all talking at once. Lisa heard words like primitive and aggressive and dangerous. Some aliens were nodding in agreement. Others looked uncomfortable, but none spoke up for humanity. Ryan tried once more. "Chancellor, surely we can find a middle ground. Humanity has contributed much to galactic science and trade. Our medical research has saved millions of lives across dozens of species. Our agricultural techniques have ended famines on 12 worlds." "Yes," Trade Minister Kolran said. "And in return, You have taken resources from neutral zones, established military bases without permission, and refused to limit your expansion. Your contributions do not excuse your crimes. Lisa felt anger building in her chest. Crimes? Every human colony had been established legally. Every trade agreement had been negotiated fairly. Every military base defended human civilians from pirates and raiders. Our crimes? She said, her voice getting louder. What about the Zalari attack on New Boston Colony? What about the hegemony seizure of human cargo ships? What about the Council's refusal to protect human civilians from raiders while demanding we not defend ourselves? Chancellor Vextai's eyes grew cold. Those were necessary actions to maintain order. Humans refused to understand their place in the galactic community. Our place? Lisa stepped closer to the platform. What place would that be? Second-class citizens, slaves, servants to species that have forgotten how to fight for themselves? The chamber erupted in angry alien voices. Guards stepped forward, weapons raised. Colonel Sullivan moved to protect Admiral Hayes, his own weapon now in his hand. Enough, Chancellor Vextai shouted. The room became silent again. This is exactly what we mean. Humans respond to everything with aggression and violence. You prove our point with every word. Lisa looked around the chamber at hundreds of alien faces. Most looked angry or disgusted. A few looked afraid. None looked friendly. She made her decision. You want to know what humans are like when we're really aggressive? She said quietly. You want to see what happens when you push us too far? She turned and started walking toward the exit. Ryan and Matt followed her. Where are you going? Trade Minister Colron called after them. Lisa stopped at the chamber entrance and turned back. We withdraw our membership from this council effective immediately. You want to see what humanity looks like when we stop playing by your rules? You're about to find out. The three humans walked out of the chamber, leaving behind hundreds of confused and angry aliens. Behind them, voices rose in chaos and argument. Captain Jake Morrison was waiting for them at the docking bay. How did it go? He asked. Get us out of here, Lisa said, and send a message to Earth. Tell them to begin Operation Silent Running. As the Meridian pulled away from the council station, none of the humans looked back. They had tried peace. They had tried negotiation. They had tried following the rules. Now it was time to write new rules. In the council chambers, Chancellor Vextai stared at the empty platform where the humans had stood. Something about Admiral Hayes's final words worried him. But surely 3 humans couldn't threaten the entire Galactic Council. Could they? President Karen Mitchell sat in the Situation Room deep, under the White House. Around the table sat the most powerful people on Earth. General Paul Anderson commanded all human military forces. Dr. Alex Turner ran the Colonial Research Division. Admiral Hayes had returned from the council station 3 days ago, and her report had shocked everyone. Show me the current situation, President Mitchell said. General Anderson activated the holographic display in the center of the table. Points of light appeared, showing human colonies, council fleets, and trade routes across known space. The council moved fast, he said. They've placed fleets here, and here. Red dots appeared on the display. They're stopping our cargo ships and demanding inspections. 3 merchant vessels have been seized in the past 2 days. Dr. Turner leaned forward. It's worse than that. Our intelligence shows they've been planning this for months. Every trade agreement we thought we had with neutral species, the Council was working behind the scenes to undermine them. Every diplomatic relationship we built, they were poisoning those relationships with lies about human aggression. President Mitchell studied the display. Hundreds of human colonies were scattered across space, connected by trade routes that kept them alive. If the Council could cut those routes, millions of humans would be trapped. What are our options? She asked. Admiral Hayes spoke up. We could fight. Our fleet is strong enough to break their blockades. But that would prove their point about human aggression. Every neutral species would side with the Council. We could negotiate, General Anderson said. Give them some of what they want. Pull back from a few colonies. Accept their cultural programs. That's surrender, Dr. Turner said. They want to control us. Once we give in to their demands, they'll keep making new demands until humanity is nothing but their servants. President Mitchell nodded. She had spent 3 sleepless nights thinking about this decision. Every option led to the same conclusion. There is another way, she said quietly. Dr. Turner, show them your analysis. Dr. Turner activated another display. This one showed trade flows, communication networks, and diplomatic relationships across the galaxy. The Council's power comes from one thing, he said. Communication. They negotiate, they threaten, they make deals. Their entire system depends on everyone talking to everyone else. But what happens when one major player simply stops talking? General Anderson frowned. You mean cut off all communication with Council species? I mean more than that, Dr. Turner said. Complete communication silence. No threats, no warnings, no negotiations, no responses. We simply stop acknowledging that Council species exist. Admiral Hayes smiled for the first time in days. I like it, but can we make it work? Every human colony, every ship, every station, President Mitchell said. When a Council ship approaches, we don't respond to their hails. We don't answer their questions. We don't threaten them or warn them. We simply act as if they're not there. What about neutral species? General Anderson asked. We keep talking to them, Dr. Turner said. Normal trade, normal diplomacy. The Council can't complain about us talking to neutrals. That would make them look even worse. President Mitchell stood up. This is our decision. As of right now, Operation Silent Running begins. No human will speak to any Council species for any reason. General Anderson, send the order to all military units. Dr. Turner, notify all colonies and civilian ships. Admiral Hayes, I want you to take personal command of this operation. 2 days later, Captain Steve Rogers commanded the cargo ship Liberty Bell as it approached the Kepler 442 system. His ship carried medical supplies for the colony there. The supplies were needed badly. A disease outbreak had already killed 200 people. Captain, his communications officer called out. We've got company. On the main screen, 3 Zalari patrol ships appeared. They were sleek and fast, designed to catch cargo ships like the Liberty Bell. Incoming transmission, the communications officer said. Don't answer it, Captain Rogers said. The communications officer looked confused. Sir, you heard me. Don't answer. The lead Zalari ship moved closer. Steve could see weapons powering up on its hull. His own ship had no weapons. It was a cargo hauler, not a warship. Captain Rogers, a voice came over the radio. This is Commander Zelkar of the Zalari Patrol Fleet. You will stop your engines and prepare for inspection. Steve Rogers looked at his crew. They all looked nervous. This was the first test of Operation Silent Running. Ignore them, he said. Continue on course. The Zalari ship fired a warning shot across their bow. Energy beams lit up space in front of the Liberty Bell. Human vessel, stop immediately or we will disable your engines. Steve reached over and turned off the communications system entirely. The voice cut off in mid-sentence. Sir, what are we doing? His first officer asked. Following orders, Steve said. They don't exist anymore. The Liberty Bell continued toward the colony. The Zalari ships followed, sending more warning shots. But they didn't fire on the cargo ship itself. After an hour, they gave up and flew away. Steve Rogers delivered his medical supplies to Kepler 442 colony. The colonists were grateful but confused. The Zalari have been harassing our supply ships for weeks, the colony governor said. How did you get past them? Simple, Steve replied. We stopped listening. Across human space, the same scene played out hundreds of times. Council ships would approach human vessels, demand responses, fire warning shots, and eventually give up when the humans simply ignored them. The psychological effect was immediate and terrifying. Commander Vachtel of the Hegemony Fleet had been a military officer for 30 years. He had fought pirates, rebels, and raiders, but he had never faced an enemy that simply wouldn't acknowledge his existence. Fire another warning shot, he ordered. Sir, we've fired 12 warning shots. The human ship isn't responding. Then hail them again. Sir, we've been hailing them for 2 hours. Commander Vachtel stared at the human destroyer on his screen. It was smaller than his flagship, but he knew human ships were dangerous. The destroyer continued on its patrol route as if the Hegemony Fleet wasn't there. What are they planning? He asked his tactical officer. I don't know, sir. They're not broadcasting any threats or demands. No military formations. They're just ignoring us. For the first time in his career, Commander Vachtel felt helpless. How do you fight an enemy that won't talk to you? How do you negotiate with someone who won't acknowledge you exist? Within a week, reports were flooding back to the Council station. Human ships were still flying their normal routes. Human colonies were still operating normally. Human military vessels were still patrolling their territory, but none of them would respond to Council communications. High Chancellor Vextai read the reports with growing unease. This wasn't what they had expected. Humans were supposed to be angry, supposed to make threats, supposed to do something that would justify council action. Instead, they had simply vanished from the galactic conversation. What does this mean? Trade Minister Kolran asked during an emergency meeting. It means, Chancellor Vextai said slowly, that we may have made a mistake. A mistake? They're ignoring us. This proves they're uncivilized. Does it? Chancellor Vextai looked at the reports again. Or does it prove that they're more disciplined than we thought? On Earth, President Mitchell watched the reports coming in from across human space. Every ship, every colony, every station was following orders perfectly. Not one human had broken the silence. How long do we maintain this? General Anderson asked. President Mitchell smiled. Until they understand that we don't need their permission to exist. The silence had begun, and in that silence the balance of power in the galaxy was about to shift forever. 6 months had passed since the silence began. Trade Minister Kolran stood in his office, staring at economic reports that made his stone-gray skin even paler. The numbers were bad and getting worse every day. Explain this to me again, he said to his economic advisor. The human trade routes were more important than we realized, the advisor said nervously. They carried 60% of medical supplies to outer rim colonies, 40% of rare earth metals, 30% of manufactured goods. When they stopped trading with us, our whole supply system collapsed. Kolran crushed the report in his massive hand. Find other suppliers. We tried, sir. The Orion Free Worlds were our best option, but their shipping costs are 3 times higher than human rates. The Keth Confederacy has the capacity, but they're demanding exclusive contracts that violate our agreements with other council members. So fix it. Sir, with respect, the problem isn't just economics. It's logistics. Human ships were faster, more efficient, and more reliable than any other species. They had the best routes mapped, the best scheduling systems, the most experienced crews. Replacing them isn't just expensive, it might be impossible. Kolran dismissed his advisor and sat down heavily in his chair. The hegemony had been the richest trade empire in the galaxy for 2,000 years. Now, 6 months without human trade had brought them to the edge of economic collapse. His communication system chimed. Sir, urgent report from Admiral Thekvar. Put him through. Admiral Thekvar appeared on the screen. His usually perfect military uniform was wrinkled and he looked exhausted. Minister, we have a problem at Kepler 186F. What kind of problem? The human mining colony there. We moved to blockade it as ordered, but what? The humans fought us. Kolran leaned forward. Fought you? Did they threaten you first? Did they send warnings? No, sir, that's the problem. They didn't say anything at all. Admiral Thekvar activated a tactical display. We positioned our fleet here outside the mining system. Standard blockade formation. We expected the humans to negotiate, maybe threaten us, try to find a peaceful solution. And 3 human destroyers appeared out of hyperspace. No warning, no communication. They just started shooting. Kolran studied the tactical display. The human ships were tiny compared to the hegemony battle cruisers. 3 destroyers against your entire fleet? Yes, sir. They disabled our flagship in the first 30 seconds, took out our communications array, our weapons control, our engine control. Surgical strikes, no unnecessary damage. Then they hit our escort vessels the same way. Did you surrender? Sir, we tried to surrender. We broadcast surrender requests on all frequencies. The human ships ignored us completely. They disabled every ship in our fleet, then just left. Kolran felt a chill run down his spine. They didn't accept your surrender? They didn't acknowledge it. As far as the humans were concerned, we weren't even there. They treated our entire fleet like asteroids to be cleared out of their way. The communication ended, leaving Kolran alone with his thoughts. This wasn't how war was supposed to work. When you fought someone, they threatened you back. They made demands. They negotiated, but the humans weren't negotiating. They were just acting. Halfway across the galaxy, Commander Nick Foster stood on the bridge of the human destroyer Valiant. His ship was one of 3 that had just finished cleaning up the hegemony blockade at Kepler 186F. Damage report, he said to his tactical officer. No damage to our ships, sir. All 3 destroyers are operating at full capacity. Enemy casualties? None, sir. We disabled their ships without harming their crews. They should have life support and emergency power restored within a few hours. Nick nodded. The new rules of engagement were very specific. Disable enemy ships without killing crews unless absolutely necessary. Don't respond to communications. Don't accept surrenders. Don't make threats. Just remove the obstacle and continue with the mission. Sir, his communications officer said, we're receiving multiple surrender requests from the disabled hegemony ships. Ignore them, Nick said. Set course for New Eden Colony. Admiral Hayes wants us to check on their defense preparations. The Valiant and its 2 escort ships jumped to hyperspace, leaving the hegemony fleet floating helplessly in space. It would take them days to repair enough damage to limp home. On the research station New Geneva, Dr. Elena Rodriguez was making a discovery that would change everything. She had been studying neutral species reactions to the human silence, and what she found surprised her. Look at this, she said to her research assistant. The holographic display showed diplomatic communications between various neutral species. The Keth Confederacy has sent 3 requests for human protection from Zolari expansion. Her assistant noted. That's not the interesting part, Elena said. Look at this communication from the Orion Free Worlds. A text document appeared on the screen. Elena read it aloud. The Orion government formally requests permission to establish permanent trade agreements with human colonies, bypassing all council oversight and regulation. They want to trade with us directly. More than that. They want us to protect them from the council. Look at this report from the Vegan Trade Alliance. Another document appeared. This one was longer and more detailed. They're offering to share advanced manufacturing technology with human colonies in exchange for military protection. Elena, neutral species aren't just trading with us anymore. They're actively choosing us over the council. Elena felt excitement building in her chest. Do you know what this means? The council is losing control? More than that. The council's entire power structure was built on the idea that they were the only game in town. If you wanted protection, you joined the council. If you wanted trade agreements, you went through the council. If you wanted to settle disputes, you used council mediation. And now there's an alternative. Humanity isn't trying to replace the council. We're just ignoring them. But neutral species see that we can protect ourselves, that we can trade efficiently, that we can solve problems without endless committee meetings and political games. Elena's communication system chimed. Dr. Rodriguez, priority message from Admiral Hayes. Elena accepted the communication. Admiral Hayes appeared on the screen looking pleased. Doctor, I'm sending you the latest intelligence reports. The Keth Confederacy has formally requested human protection. They're offering to sign an exclusive defense agreement. Are we going to accept? 3 human battlecruisers are already en route to Keth space. We're not announcing it. We're not making speeches about it. We're just doing it. The communication ended and Elena stared at the star charts on her screen. Little red dots marked council territory. Blue dots marked human space. Green dots marked neutral species. But now, some of those green dots were turning blue, not because humanity had conquered them, but because they had chosen to align with humanity over the council. In his private chambers on the council station, High Chancellor Vextai read reports that filled him with dread. The Keth Confederacy had formally rejected council protection and signed a defense pact with humanity. The Orion Free Worlds were negotiating exclusive trade deals with human corporations. Even some minor council member species were quietly asking about the possibility of leaving the council. This cannot continue, he said to his advisors. What are our options? Asked his military commander. We could escalate. Send larger fleets to blockade human space. Sir, our last 3 attempts at blockading human territory have failed. The humans don't negotiate, don't surrender, and don't back down. They just fight until we retreat. Then we fight harder. With respect, sir, our intelligence suggests that would be a mistake. Human military technology is more advanced than we thought. Their ships are faster, their weapons are more accurate, and their crews are better trained. In a direct military confrontation, we might lose. Vextai slammed his fist on the table. Then what do you suggest? We could try to reopen negotiations. Send another diplomatic mission to Earth and say what? That we made a mistake? That we want to take back our ultimatum? Sir, the alternative might be watching the council collapse entirely. Vextai stared out the window at the stars. Somewhere out there, human ships were flying their routes in complete silence. Human colonies were growing and prospering. Human military forces were protecting Neutral species that should have been under council. Protection. And not one human had spoken to a council representative in 6 months. The silence was destroying everything the council had built. And Vextai was beginning to understand that this might have been humanity's plan all along. 1 year after the silence began, Captain Amy Carter stood on the bridge of the newest human warship ever built. The Silent Thunder was a dreadnought, 3 times larger than any previous human vessel. Its weapons could destroy entire fleets, and its armor could withstand almost any attack. But like every other human ship, its communication systems had been modified. They could still talk to neutral species and other human vessels, but they had been programmed to completely ignore any signal from council species. "Captain," her tactical officer reported. "We have contact. Zilari Fleet 12 ships approaching from Sector 7. Amy studied the tactical display. The Zilari Fleet was larger than her single ship, but she wasn't worried. Human naval doctrine had changed completely since the silence began. No more warnings, no more negotiations, no more mercy for council forces that threatened human interests. "Are they in our territorial space?" she asked. "Yes, ma'am. They crossed the boundary 15 minutes ago. Then they're trespassing. All weapons full power. Target their engines and weapons systems. Do not target crew areas unless they refuse to leave." The Silent Thunder accelerated toward the Zilari Fleet. On the main screen, Amy could see the elegant blue ships arranging themselves in battle formation. They were beautiful ships designed as much for ceremony as for warfare. Her ship was built for only one purpose: winning fights. "Captain," her communications officer said, "the Zilari are broadcasting on all frequencies. They're demanding we respond to their hails. Ignore them. They're saying they have legitimate business in this system. They claim the right to inspect human cargo vessels under Council Resolution 847. Amy smiled coldly. "Council Resolution 847 assumes we're still members of the Council. We're not. Fire when ready." The Silent Thunder opened fire with weapons the Zilari had never seen before. Energy beams reached across space with perfect accuracy, striking the Zilari ships exactly where Amy had ordered. Within minutes, the entire enemy fleet was floating helplessly in space, their engines and weapons disabled. But Amy wasn't finished. "Set course for the next system," she ordered. "Intelligence reports say there are more Zilari ships harassing our colonies there." "Ma'am," her tactical officer said carefully, "those ships might retreat when they get word about what happened here. Then we'll follow them until they get the message." "What message is that, ma'am?" Amy looked at the disabled Zilari ships on her screen. "That this is human space now, and trespassers will be removed." The Silent Thunder jumped to hyperspace, beginning a campaign that would clear Council forces out of 3 entire star systems. Not one human had spoken to the enemy during the entire operation. Dr. Miranda Wells was one of the few Council citizens brave enough to study what the aliens were calling the human problem. She was a psychologist, and her job was to understand why the silence was so effective. Her classified report would eventually change how the entire galaxy thought about warfare. "The psychological impact of the human silence cannot be overstated," she wrote. "Council military doctrine has been based on communication for over 1,000 years. We threaten our enemies, they threaten us back, and then we negotiate a solution that saves face for both sides. Humans have rejected this entire framework. They do not threaten, they do not negotiate, and they do not accept face-saving compromises. When humans decide that Council forces are unwelcome in an area, they simply remove those forces. No warning, no discussion, no opportunity for the Council to withdraw gracefully. This creates a psychological condition that Council military leaders have never experienced: complete helplessness. When you cannot communicate with your enemy, you cannot predict their actions, understand their motivations, or negotiate for mercy. Recommendation: the Council must find a way to reopen communication with humanity immediately. The current situation is not sustainable. Dr. Wells' report was filed away and ignored by Council leadership. They had bigger problems to worry about. Captain Dan Price commanded a convoy of colony ships heading toward what used to be Council-protected space. His 12 ships carried 50,000 human colonists and everything they needed to build new cities on empty worlds. "Captain," his navigation officer reported, "we're approaching the Vega system. Long-range sensors show Council patrol ships in the area." Dan looked at his tactical display. The Vega system had 3 habitable planets, all of them empty. According to Council law, No one could colonize them without council permission. According to human law, empty worlds belong to whoever could use them. Do the council ships pose a threat to our colonists? Dan asked. Unknown, sir. They're maintaining position around the second planet. Then we'll establish our colony on the third planet. If they interfere, we'll deal with them. 6 hours later, the council patrol tried to interfere. They positioned their ships between the human colony fleet and the planet, broadcasting warnings about unauthorized colonization and violations of council law. Dan Price listened to their warnings for exactly 30 seconds. Then he activated the combat protocols. The human escort ships were smaller than the council patrol vessels, but they were faster and better armed. The fight lasted 12 minutes. When it was over, the council ships were drifting in space, their crews alive but their ships completely disabled. The human colonists landed on Vega 3 and began building their new city. They never acknowledged that the council ships had existed. General Chris Murphy commanded the defense of New Sparta colony when the council's largest fleet arrived. Admiral Keltar of the Zalari Navy brought 60 warships to crush what he called human arrogance once and for all. The battle should have been hopeless for the humans. New Sparta had only 18 defensive platforms and 6 patrol ships. Admiral Keltar had enough firepower to destroy entire planets. But Admiral Keltar made the same mistake every council commander had been making for a year. He tried to negotiate. Human forces, he broadcast. This is Admiral Keltar of the Zalari Imperial Navy. You are outnumbered 10-1. Surrender now and your colonists will be relocated peacefully. Refuse and we will destroy your colony completely. General Murphy listened to the transmission from his command bunker, deep under New Sparta's capital city. His staff waited for his response. Tactical assessment, he said calmly. Enemy fleet is in standard attack formation, his tactical officer reported. 60 ships, mostly heavy cruisers and battleships. They're maintaining position outside our weapons range, probably waiting for our surrender. How long until our reinforcements arrive? Admiral Hayes's fleet is 6 hours out. Then we hold for 6 hours. All defensive platforms target the flagship. All patrol ships attack pattern Delta. Engage when ready. The Battle of New Sparta lasted 3 hours and became a legend throughout human space. General Murphy's forces didn't just defend the colony. They pursued the retreating council fleet and destroyed every enemy ship in 3 separate star systems. Admiral Keltar's 60-ship fleet was completely annihilated. No council ship escaped to report what had happened. But the most terrifying part from the council's perspective was what happened next. General Murphy sent no messages claiming victory. He made no demands for council surrender. He issued no threats about future attacks. He simply filed a brief report to Admiral Hayes. New Sparta colony secure. Threat eliminated. Requesting permission to begin expansion to nearby systems. When Admiral Hayes's reinforcement fleet arrived 6 hours later, they found New Sparta's colonists calmly going about their daily business. The children were in school, the farmers were tending their crops, and the factories were producing goods for trade with neutral species. The wreckage of 60 council warships floating in space was treated like any other debris that needed to be cleared away. Admiral Hayes reviewed General Murphy's report and approved his request to expand to nearby systems. Within a week, human colony ships were establishing settlements on 5 worlds that had been under council protection for centuries. Still, no humans spoke to any council representative. On the council station, High Chancellor Vextai stared at intelligence reports that made no sense. The Zalari Imperial Navy's most powerful fleet had simply vanished. No distress calls, no final communications, no survivors. The last known position of Admiral Keltar's fleet was near New Sparta colony. Reconnaissance flights showed human expansion in that area, but no signs of the missing Zalari ships. Could they have retreated to another system? Vextai asked his military advisor. Sir, we've checked every system within 100 light-years. There's no trace of Admiral Keltar's fleet anywhere. Then what happened to 60 warships? Sir, based on the evidence, we believe the entire fleet was destroyed. Vextai felt something he had never experienced before in his 200-year life. Genuine fear. Destroyed by 18 defensive platforms and 6 patrol ships? Sir, our intelligence may have been wrong about human military capabilities. Wrong how? Sir, we may have seriously underestimated them. That night, Vextai sent an encrypted message to every council member species. The message was simple. The human situation has become critical. Emergency session requested. All species must attend. For the first time in Council history, the meeting would be about how to surrender to an enemy that refused to talk to them. 3 years after the silence began, the Galactic Council faced its worst crisis in 1,000 years. Species were leaving the Council at a rate of 1 per month.
Trade had collapsed.
Military fleets were afraid to leave their home systems. High Chancellor Vextai stood before the emergency assembly, looking at rows of empty seats where Council delegates used to sit. The chamber that once held representatives from 300 species now barely had 50. The situation is clear, he said to the remaining delegates. We have 2 choices. We can continue our current policies and watch the Council destroy itself, or we can admit that our approach to humanity has failed. Trade Minister Kolran stood up from his seat. His gray skin looked almost white with stress. You're suggesting we surrender to a species that won't even talk to us? I'm suggesting we find a way to reopen communication. And how do you propose we do that? We've sent diplomatic missions to every human colony. They ignore us completely. We've tried military pressure. They destroy our fleets. We've tried economic pressure. They trade with neutral species instead. Ambassador Threnai of the Keth Confederacy raised her hand. She was one of the few neutral species representatives still attending council meetings. May I speak? Vextai nodded. Of course, Ambassador. The Keth Confederacy has been under human protection for 2 years now. I can tell you that humans are not unreasonable. They are simply different. Different how? When my government requested human protection from Zalari expansion, we expected negotiations. We prepared for months of discussions about terms, conditions, territorial boundaries, payment schedules. And 3 human battlecruisers arrived in our space within a week. No negotiations, no contracts, no demands for payment. They simply took positions around our colonies and began patrolling our borders. Vextai leaned forward. They asked for nothing in return? Nothing. When we tried to offer them payment, they ignored us. When we tried to negotiate formal treaties, they ignored us. They simply provide protection because we asked for it. That makes no sense, Trade Minister Kolran said. No species provides military protection without demanding something in return. Humans do, Ambassador Threnai replied. And that's why half the neutral species in the galaxy are now under human protection. She activated a holographic display showing current territorial control. The map shocked everyone in the chamber. 3 years ago, Council territory had been shown in red, covering nearly 60% of known space. Human territory had been blue dots scattered across maybe 10% of the galaxy. Neutral species had been green. Now the red areas had shrunk to less than 30% of the galaxy. Blue areas covered 40%, and most of the green areas had blue borders around them, showing human protection. How is this possible? Vextai asked. Humans don't conquer, Ambassador Threnai explained. They protect. When a species asks for help, humans provide it. No strings attached, no political control, no demands for resources or territory. They just help. But why? I asked a human admiral that same question. He said it was because strong neighbors make better trading partners than conquered slaves. The chamber fell silent. The concept was so foreign to council thinking that most delegates couldn't understand it. Captain Tony Miller stood on the bridge of the human super dreadnought Sovereignty, watching the most unusual sight in recent galactic history. Hundreds of alien ships were lined up in space, waiting patiently for permission to approach Earth. Status report, he said to his communications officer. 43 species have requested formal audiences with the Human Federation. The Keth Confederacy wants to upgrade their protection agreement to a full alliance. The Orion Free Worlds are offering to share their gravity drive technology. Even some former Council species are asking to join our protection network. Tony studied the display showing the queue of alien ships. 3 years ago, these same species had either ignored humanity or actively supported Council policies against human expansion. Any word from Earth about how to handle all these requests? Admiral Hayes says to process them one at a time. No rush, no pressure. Let them wait as long as necessary. And Council species? Still complete communication blackout. The Zalari sent another diplomatic mission yesterday. We logged their presence and continued normal operations. Tony nodded. The silence had evolved from a punishment into a simple fact of life. Council species no longer existed in human awareness. Not as enemies, not as threats, just as irrelevant background noise. Sir, his tactical officer reported. Long-range sensors show a large fleet approaching from the direction of the old Council territories. Composition? Mixed species. Solari, hegemony, and at least 6 others. Looks like about 100 ships. Are they heading for Earth? No, sir, they're heading for Luna Station. Tony frowned. Luna Station was where Admiral Hayes conducted diplomatic meetings with alien species. If Council forces were heading there, they might be planning something desperate. Alert Admiral Hayes. And prepare for combat operations, just in case. Admiral Lisa Hayes stood in the observation deck of Luna Station, watching the Council fleet approach. 5 years ago, she had walked out of Council chambers and declared humanity's independence from galactic politics. Now the Council was coming to her. Admiral, her aide reported, the Council fleet is requesting permission to dock. High Chancellor Vextai himself is aboard the flagship. How many ships? 112, ma'am. Looks like representatives from every remaining Council species. Lisa smiled. That's interesting. 5 years ago, they told us we weren't civilized enough to have equal representation in their Council. Now their entire leadership is here asking for a meeting. Should we respond to their request? Lisa considered her options. The silence had served its purpose. Humanity was now the dominant power in the galaxy, not through conquest but through simple competence. Council species had been reduced to begging for human attention. Maybe it was time to listen. Open a channel to the Council flagship, she said. Ma'am, you heard me. It's time to end the silence. The communication channel activated and High Chancellor Vextai appeared on the screen. He looked older, more tired, and much less arrogant than he had 5 years ago. Admiral Hayes, he said carefully, thank you for agreeing to speak with us. Chancellor, Lisa replied. Her voice was calm and professional. This is the first time in 5 years that any human has spoken to a Council representative. I hope you understand the significance of that. I do, Admiral, and I want you to know that the Council formally apologizes for our previous actions. We were wrong to threaten humanity. We were wrong to demand your submission. We were wrong about everything. Lisa studied his face. The proud, arrogant alien who had demanded human submission 5 years ago was gone. In his place was someone who looked genuinely humble. What do you want, Chancellor? We want to discuss the possibility of re-establishing diplomatic relations between our species. Individual species, you mean? The Galactic Council as we knew it is over. Vextai nodded slowly. Yes, individual species. The Council has formally dissolved as of yesterday. Each member species is now free to pursue their own diplomatic relationships. Interesting timing. Admiral, we understand that humanity is now the dominant power in this galaxy. We're not here to challenge that or to demand special treatment. We're here to ask if individual Council species might be allowed to join the new order you've created. Lisa looked out the window at the hundreds of alien ships waiting in space. Some belonged to former Council species, desperate to avoid being left behind as the galaxy moved forward without them. Others belonged to neutral species eager to formalize their relationships with humanity. All of them were waiting for her decision. Here are the terms, she said finally. Any species that wants diplomatic relations with humanity must apply individually. No group negotiations, no alliances against human interests, no attempts to recreate the old Council under a new name. We understand. Second, any species that has committed acts of aggression against human colonies or shipping in the past 5 years must make full restitution before any talks can begin. Vextai winced, but nodded. Third, humanity reserves the right to refuse diplomatic relations with any species for any reason. We are not obligated to explain our decisions or provide appeals processes. Agreed. Finally, understand this, Chancellor. The galaxy has changed. Humanity doesn't ask for permission anymore. We don't negotiate for our right to exist. We don't apologize for our success. The old system where powerful species bullied weaker ones is over. In its place, we've built something based on mutual benefit and voluntary cooperation. Yes, Admiral, we understand. Good. You have 1 week to submit formal applications for diplomatic relations. Each species applies separately. Each application will be judged on its own merits. The communication ended and Lisa turned to her aide. Send a message to President Johnson. Tell him the silence is officially over. And tell him we won. Outside the station, the former Council fleet began spreading out as individual ships prepared to approach Luna Station one by one. Like supplicants seeking audience with a new emperor. The empire that had ruled the galaxy for 1,000 years was dead. In its place stood humanity, victorious not through conquest but through the simple act of refusing to be controlled. 5 years after the silence had ended, the galaxy was a completely different place. President Kyle Johnson stood before the Human Colonial Assembly on Mars, delivering his annual State of the Union address. The assembled delegates represented over 400 human colonies spread across 60 star systems. "Fellow humans," he began, "when our ancestors left Earth to explore the stars, they dreamed of a galaxy where humanity could grow and prosper in peace. Today, that dream has become reality." The holographic display behind him showed the current galactic map. Human territory, marked in blue, now covered 55% of known space. The areas that weren't directly controlled by humanity were mostly under human protection or alliance agreements. We now have formal diplomatic relations with 87 alien species. 43 species have requested to join the Independent Defense Alliance under human leadership. Our trade networks reach every corner of known space, bringing prosperity not just to human colonies but to hundreds of worlds that were left behind by the old council system. In the audience, Admiral Lisa Hayes smiled. She remembered the desperate fight to establish humanity's independence 10 years ago. Now her biggest problem was managing a military force so large and advanced that most alien species couldn't even understand how it worked. "But our greatest achievement," President Johnson continued, "is not our military strength or our economic success. It's the new model of civilization we've created, a model based on cooperation instead of domination, on mutual benefit instead of exploitation." After the speech, President Johnson met privately with his senior advisors in a secure conference room. The public celebration was important, but there were still serious challenges to address. "What's the current situation with the former council species?" he asked. Admiral Hayes activated a status display. 43 former council species have successfully integrated into our alliance network. 21 are still in various stages of the application process. But we've had to permanently exclude 8 species for continued aggressive behavior. The Zalari? High Chancellor Vextai was replaced by a more moderate government 2 years ago. They've made full restitution for their attacks on human shipping, and have been model allies ever since. Chancellor Zaramil is actually one of our strongest supporters now. General Paul Anderson leaned forward. "The real success story is the Defense Alliance system. We've had 0 major conflicts in the past 3 years. When disputes arise between member species, they request human mediation instead of starting wars. And the neutrals who haven't joined us?" Dr. Alex Turner, now Secretary of Alien Affairs, consulted his notes. "Most are content with informal trade relationships. A few are still suspicious of any large alliance system after their experiences with the old council. We respect their choice to remain independent. What about our internal situation? Any problems with the colonial expansion?" "Quite the opposite," Dr. Turner replied. "Our population growth is exceeding all projections. The new colony ships are launching faster than we can train crews for them. At current rates, we'll have over 1,000 human colonies within 20 years. President Johnson nodded. "That's good, but we need to be careful not to expand faster than we can protect our people." "Admiral Hayes, what's the status of the fleet?" "We currently operate 467 major warships, including 12 super dreadnoughts like the Sovereignty. We also have over 2,000 patrol and escort vessels. Every human colony and major trade route is protected. Alien reaction to our military buildup?" "Interesting question," Admiral Hayes said. "Most allied species actually want us to build more ships. They see our fleet as protection for the entire alliance network. A few neutral species worry about human military power, but they're not complaining as long as we leave them alone." "Which we do," President Johnson confirmed. "Our policy remains the same. We protect our friends, we trade with anyone who wants to trade, and we leave everyone else in peace." Captain Jake Morrison, now promoted to admiral and commanding the Sol Defense Fleet, spoke up. "Mr. President, there is one issue we should discuss. Our intelligence services have detected signs of organization among some of the excluded species." "What kind of organization?" "Nothing definite yet, but intercepted communications suggest that the 8 species we've excluded from alliance membership might be forming their own coalition, probably calling themselves something like the Free Galaxy Movement or the Liberation Alliance." Admiral Hayes frowned. "Do they pose a military threat?" "Individually, no. Together, maybe. If they could coordinate their fleets effectively, They might have enough ships to challenge us in a few remote systems. Recommendations? Continue monitoring, Admiral Morrison said. Increase patrol frequency in border areas, and maybe reach out to neutral species near their territory to offer protection agreements. President Johnson considered this. Do it, but quietly. I don't want to provoke a conflict, but I won't let anyone threaten human civilians. The meeting continued for another hour, covering trade disputes, colonial administration, and scientific research programs. When it ended, President Johnson walked out onto the observation deck of the assembly building. Mars had changed dramatically since becoming the capital of human space. The red planet now hosted over 50 million people spread across dozens of cities. Terraform engines were slowly changing the atmosphere, and the first open-air communities were already being planned. But the most impressive sight was in space above the planet. Hundreds of ships moved in carefully controlled patterns. Human vessels, allied alien ships, and neutral traders all conducting business in perfect harmony. Sir? Admiral Hayes joined him on the observation deck. You look thoughtful. I was just thinking about how far we've come, President Johnson said. 10 years ago, we were the new kids being bullied by the Council. Now we're the ones setting the rules for half the galaxy. Any regrets about the way we handled the Council? No, they forced our hand and we responded the only way that would work. Sometimes silence really is more powerful than words. And the current situation? I'm proud of what we've built, Lisa. We could have become just another empire conquering and ruling through fear. Instead, we created something better. A system where species choose to work together because it benefits everyone. Admiral Hayes nodded. The Alliance Network has proven that cooperation works better than domination. Even some of our former enemies have figured that out. Most of them anyway. What's your honest assessment of this potential free galaxy coalition? Honestly, I think it's desperation more than genuine organization. The excluded species are watching everyone else prosper under human leadership, while they're stuck on the outside. Some of them would rather fight than admit they were wrong. And if they do decide to fight? Admiral Hayes smiled grimly. Then they'll learn the same lesson the old Council learned. Humanity doesn't negotiate with people who threaten our civilians. We just remove the threat. President Johnson looked up at the stars, thinking about the millions of humans living in colonies scattered across those distant suns. Each colony was a testament to human determination and ingenuity. Each successful world proved that humanity belonged among the stars. You know what the best part is? He said finally. What's that, sir? We didn't win through conquest or intimidation. We won by being better at everything that matters. Better at war when we had to fight, better at peace when we could negotiate, better at trade, better at cooperation, better at building things that last. The galaxy is definitely a better place than it was under Council rule, and it'll keep getting better. Every new species that joins the Alliance, every successful colony, every peaceful trade agreement, they all prove that our way works. Above them, a passenger liner departed for the Alpha Centauri system, carrying 10,000 new colonists to their new home. Its escort ships included vessels from 3 different allied species, all working together to ensure safe passage. Nearby, a Keth diplomatic vessel was docking at Mars Station, probably delivering another trade proposal or requesting mediation for some minor dispute. The Keth had become some of humanity's strongest supporters, and their relationship was a model for other species. In the distance, Admiral Hayes could see the massive shape of the Silent Thunder, Captain Amy Carter's dreadnought that had become legendary throughout human space. The ship was a symbol of human military power, but also of human restraint, powerful enough to destroy entire fleets, but used only to protect and defend. Sir, Admiral Hayes said, permission to speak freely? Always, Lisa. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if the Council had accepted us as equals from the beginning. If they had treated us with respect instead of trying to bully us into submission. President Johnson considered this. They might still be running the galaxy, but they would have had to share power and they weren't willing to do that. Their loss. Definitely their loss. And the galaxy's gain. As the 2 leaders watched, a formation of ships jumped into hyperspace, heading for the edge of human territory, where new colonies were being established on worlds that had been empty for millions of years. Each ship carried the tools and people needed to build another piece of humanity's expanding civilization. 10 years had passed since humanity first broke its silence with the former Council species. The galaxy had settled into a new rhythm of peace and prosperity that most inhabitants couldn't imagine living without. But in the far reaches of space, old grudges still burned. Admiral Jake Morrison, now commanding the exploration fleet, stood on the bridge of the horizon as it completed its survey of the Kepler 442 system. His ships had been mapping uncharted territories for 3 years, searching for new worlds suitable for human colonization. Final report on the system, he asked his science officer. 2 habitable worlds, sir. Both Earth-like, no intelligent life, rich in minerals. Perfect for colonial development. Any signs of previous claims or occupation? None, sir. The system appears to have been ignored by all major powers throughout recorded history. Jake nodded. Standard procedure was to establish a monitoring station and begin the colonial survey process. Within 6 months, the first human settlers would arrive to begin building new cities under alien suns. Sir, his communications officer interrupted. We're receiving a priority message from Earth. It's marked urgent. Put it through. President Kyle Johnson appeared on the screen, looking more serious than Jake had seen him in years. Admiral Morrison, we have a situation developing. Intelligence reports suggest that the Free Galaxy Coalition has finally decided to act. Jake felt his stomach tighten. For years, the excluded species had been making threats and holding secret meetings. Most human leaders had assumed they would eventually give up and request readmission to the galactic community. What kind of action, Mr. President? They've assembled a fleet. Our best estimate is 400 ships from 8 different species. They're calling it the Liberation Armada, and they've declared their intention to free the galaxy from human tyranny. Target? Unknown. But Admiral Hayes believes they're planning to attack one of our major colonies as a statement. Probably something symbolic. Jake studied the star charts in his mind. New Eden colony? It was our first major expansion after the silence began. That's Admiral Hayes' best guess. I'm ordering all exploration fleets to return to defensive positions immediately. The Independence Defense Alliance is mobilizing, but we want our own forces in position first. Understood, sir. We'll be back in Sol system within 48 hours. The communication ended and Jake immediately began issuing orders. The days of peaceful exploration were over, at least temporarily. Dr. Elena Rodriguez, now director of the Galactic Intelligence Service, sat in her office on Luna Station, reviewing the latest reports from her field agents. The intelligence about the Liberation Armada was disturbing, but not unexpected. Her analysis painted a clear picture of the Coalition's motivations and likely strategies. They're not trying to win a war, she explained to Admiral Hayes during their briefing. They know they can't defeat humanity militarily. This is about proving that human dominance isn't absolute. What do you mean? If they can attack a human colony and cause significant damage before being destroyed, they believe it will encourage other species to resist human influence. They want to prove that we're not invincible. Admiral Hayes studied the tactical projections on her screen. And are we invincible? Militarily? Yes, we have better ships, better weapons, better training, and better coordination. But they're not wrong about the psychological impact of a successful attack on human civilians. Recommendations? End this before it starts. Track down their fleet and destroy it before they can reach any human colony. That would mean attacking them in neutral space, possibly without warning. Elena Rodriguez looked at her longtime colleague and friend. Lisa, they've declared war on humanity. They've announced their intention to attack our civilians. At what point do we stop treating this as a diplomatic problem and start treating it as what it is? Admiral Hayes knew Elena was right, but the decision to launch a preemptive attack was not hers to make. I'll discuss it with the President. Captain Amy Carter had been promoted to Admiral 2 years ago, but she still personally commanded the Silent Thunder because no other captain could handle the massive dreadnought as effectively. When the alert came through, she was conducting training exercises with the 3rd Fleet in the Outer Rim. All ships, this is Admiral Carter. We have new orders. The Liberation Armada has been located in the Vegan system. We are to intercept and neutralize this threat before it can reach human territory. Ma'am, her tactical officer said, the Vegan system is neutral space. The Vegan Trade Alliance has never requested human protection. The Vegans have been informed and have given permission for us to engage hostile forces in their territory. They don't want to battle in their space any more than we do, but they understand the necessity. Amy looked at the tactical display showing her fleet's position. 18 human ships, including 3 dreadnoughts and 6 heavy cruisers. Against 400 enemy vessels, the numbers looked hopeless, but Amy had been fighting impossible battles for 10 years. She knew something the Liberation Armada didn't. Human ships were no longer just better than alien vessels. They were so much better that the comparison was meaningless. Estimated time to engagement: 6 hours, ma'am. Signal all ships. Battle stations. And send a message to Admiral Hayes. The Third Fleet will handle this. Request permission to end it quickly. In the Vegan system, the Liberation Armada waited in formation around an asteroid field that provided cover from long-range sensors. Admiral Korthal of the Hegemony military commanded the largest coalition fleet assembled in over a century. Status report, he demanded from his flagship's bridge. All ships report ready for combat. Sir, intelligence suggests the humans are sending only one fleet to intercept us. How many ships? 18, sir. Admiral Korthal smiled grimly. 18 ships against 400. Either the humans are incredibly arrogant or they know something we don't. Sir, should we be concerned about human military technology? Concerned? Yes, afraid? No, we've studied human tactics for years. They rely on speed and precision strikes. But against this many ships, even perfect tactics won't be enough. What are our orders if they attempt to negotiate? There will be no negotiation. Humanity has had 10 years to prove they could coexist peacefully with other species. Instead, they've created an empire that controls half the galaxy. Today, we show the universe that human dominance can be challenged. Admiral Korthal studied the tactical display showing the positions of his ships. Each vessel represented a different species that had been excluded from the Human Independence Alliance. Each crew was motivated by years of watching their neighbors prosper under human protection, while they remained isolated and struggling. Signal the fleet, he ordered. In 1 hour, we jump to the New Eden system. Today, we remind the galaxy that humanity is not invincible. The Liberation Armada jumped to hyperspace in perfect formation. 400 ships united in their determination to strike a blow against human expansion. They never made it to New Eden. Admiral Amy Carter's Third Fleet intercepted them in the empty space between star systems, where no neutral worlds could be caught in the crossfire. The battle lasted 17 minutes. Human weapons technology had advanced dramatically in the years since the silence began. The Silent Thunder alone disabled over 50 enemy ships in the first 30 seconds of combat. The other human vessels worked with surgical precision, targeting engines and weapon systems to disable rather than destroy. Admiral Korthal found himself aboard a drifting hulk, his flagship systems completely destroyed by weapons he couldn't even identify. Around him, the Liberation Armada was floating helplessly in space, their crews alive but their ships utterly disabled. Sir, his communications officer said, we're receiving a transmission from the human fleet. Put it through. Admiral Amy Carter appeared on the screen, looking calm and professional despite having just destroyed the largest hostile fleet in galactic history. Admiral Korthal, this is Admiral Carter of the Human Federation Navy. Your fleet has been disabled. Your crews are unharmed. Rescue ships from your home systems will arrive within 48 hours. You're not taking prisoners? We're not at war with your species, Admiral. You made a mistake and we corrected it. Consider this a learning experience. A learning experience? Yes. You learned that attacking human civilians is not an option. Your crews learned that human military technology is more advanced than your intelligence suggested, and the galaxy will learn that humanity protects its people effectively. Admiral Korthal felt something break inside his chest. Not fear, not anger, but a kind of resigned understanding. What happens now? Now you go home. Your fleets are disabled but not destroyed. Your crews are alive. When you reach your home systems, you can decide whether you want to continue this confrontation or whether you'd prefer to discuss the possibility of joining the galactic community as productive members. And if we choose to continue fighting, Admiral Carter's expression didn't change. Then next time we won't be so gentle. The transmission ended, leaving Admiral Korthal alone with the wreckage of his Grand Alliance. Around him, hundreds of ships floated in space, their dreams of liberation reduced to debris and disabled hulks. Within 48 hours, rescue fleets from 8 different worlds arrived to collect their defeated forces. Within a week, 6 of those worlds had formally requested diplomatic